Well, it's 7 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting of the Lakewood City Council for Monday, December 20th to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Bell.
Present.
Councilmember Boki has not joined the meeting yet. Councilmember Brandstetter.
Here.
Councilmember Farmer.
Here.
Councilmember Moss.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Whalen.
Present.
Mayor Anderson.
Here.
And Councilmember Boki.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Now, in lieu of proclamations and presentations, we're going to mail something to the Hindu group. And so we'll move right into public comments. This is when comments are accepted by mail, email, or live virtual comments. You can send comments in advance by email or regular mail to Brianna Shoemaker at City Clerk at 6000 Main Street, Lakewood, Washington 98499, or B. Schumacher at cityoflakewood.us. Comments received up to 1 hour before the meeting have been provided to the City Council electronically. Madam Clerk, would you read the names of those who have sent in a written electronic comment?
Mayor Anderson, we received comments in advance from Addo Equitas.
Thank you. And we have received that. Members of the audience may comment on items of pertinence to the city under this kind of public comment period. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. If you would like to make a virtual public comment, you will need to join the Zoom meeting as an attendee by calling in by telephone, dialing 253-215-8782 and entering the meeting ID 868-7263-2373, which appears on your screen if you joined us electronically, or visiting zoom.us and entering the meeting ID 868-7263-2373. Upon entering the meeting, please enter your name or other chosen identifier. Use the raised hand function to be called upon. For those participating by calling in by telephone, use the raise hand feature by pressing *9 on your telephone. When you are unmuted, please provide your name and city of residence, such as Mary Moss, Lakewood, Washington. Each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes to speak. The timer will be on the screen. Outside of public comment, it will appear that you still have the Zoom function of raising your hand virtually, but you will not be acknowledged or recognized other than for the 3 minutes you're called on to speak. Now, I will move to the attendees. The first person who is signed up to speak is Mr. Dennis Haugen. Mr. Haugen.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, this is Dennis Haugen. I'm calling from Sioux Falls, used to live there. And this is where we have law and order and no smash and grabs and lots of sunshine. Anyway, one of the things that really caught my attention at your last meeting, and I feel it's very necessary, is kids on buses. And that's not only school buses, but transit buses. Since the transit buses and all of the bus systems basically are sort of a shipment route for drugs. And so a lot of contacts are made on the buses. A lot of drugs are delivered on the buses. The cartels are delivering into your state, especially because you're a sanctuary state. And that mistake there's so many laws and so many things that you've done to encourage that. But one of them was in 2018 electing officials that would put up with or vote for sanctuary states, as well as schools which act as sanctuary schools. So you want to put together crews that can do investigations and can put law and fact together, not come up with some narratives that they've already trying to fill. They made the next mistake by not firing those people in the state and the governor for signing the sanctuary state thing. So the governor is going to spend $800 million. What he says is homes for homeless. Don't be fooled. They're bringing in illegal immigrants by the millions from the southern border. And we're all wondering where they're going to put them. Keep your eyes open. Watch very clearly as to what that 800 million is going to be for. That's what Inslee is proposing. You know, we put together a government where you can fire people, you know, every 4 years if they do the wrong thing. You've got a lot of people to fire before you get things straightened out. Anyway, that's a concern. So you need investigative units on the buses, lots of cameras done by people who can put law and fact together. Thank you.
The next person signed up is Christina Minetti.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Thanks for letting us speak tonight. First, I wanted to say thank you to Mayor Anderson for his service as mayor, because as he told us last time, he'll be stepping down in January. So I want to thank you for all those years that you've been mayor. I know it probably wasn't easy, especially dealing with all the public all the time. I hope you have a good retirement from being mayor, even though I realize that you're going to be still on the city council. So thanks for that. Also, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas from everybody, or whatever holiday you might be celebrating. And I want to thank you again for putting up with us and listening to us for all these months that we've been talking to you about the trees and other things. I just wanted to make a couple comments about the ad hoc committee that you're going to be having a resolution about today. I noticed in the Lakewood Connections magazine that you mentioned about the city mentioned about the tree preservation code and environmental concerns. And it was stated that there would be an ad hoc committee formed on which environmental specialists or ecology specialists would be invited to serve. And that the purpose of the committee would be to balance, I think these were the exact words, to balance environmental necessity with public opinion. I think that was how it was stated, although I don't have my notes here. And I just wanted to say that, you know, if it's an environmental necessity, it's not really something that can be balanced or, you know, compromised with. I mean, the word necessity means it is a necessity. So you have to ask yourselves, like, what is the purpose of this ad hoc committee? Is it just window dressing? Is it really to quell some kind of, you know, agitation in the community about the trees? Or is it really that you have the trees' best interest at heart here? Is it really going to be a committee about tree preservation? I don't think we can have, you know, people on the committee that are, as I said before, we can't have people whose livelihoods depend on cutting down trees. For example, tree cutting companies or the construction people who are complaining that it makes it too expensive to have tree preservation. So when you're thinking about this tree preservation committee, ask yourselves, what is it really for? And is it really for the trees, or is it for something else? I think really we need it to be for the trees, because the trees need all the protection they can get nowadays, as you know. So thanks a lot, everybody, and have good holidays. And that's all for now. Thank you.
Next person signed up is Cambergood.
Good evening. Honorable Mayor Anderson and City of Lakewood Council members, on behalf of the Master Builders, Pierce County, I want to express our support for the creation of the Tree Preservation Ad Hoc Committee set on your agenda today. Through the creation of this committee of relevant stakeholders, the most informed decisions regarding the tree preservation codes can be made. Master Builder greatly appreciates our continued partnership to ensure that we can build new housing that is attainable and respects the preservation of trees in our region. Additionally, we look forward to being considered to take part in the ad hoc committee for what the city forms. Thank you for your consideration of these comments, and do not hesitate to reach out with any questions or comments.
That's all the people who have signed up to make public comment, but does preclude you from making public comment if you're online, and raise your virtual hand. Does anyone else wish to make public comment? Is there anyone else who wishes to make public comment? I see none. Madam Clerk, do you see anyone?
Mayor Anderson, it looks like Christina Minetti has a hand raised, but she's already provided comments this evening.
All right. And it's down now. So I declare public comment closed. We'll move to the consent agenda. Madam Clerk.
A, approval of the minutes of the City Council and Nisqually Tribal Council joint meeting of November 29th, 2021. B, approval of the minutes of the City Council meeting of December 6, 2021. C, motion number 2021-100, authorizing the execution of an interlocal agreement for comprehensive solid and hazardous waste management planning within Pierce County. D, motion number 2021-101, authorizing the execution of a collective bargaining agreement with Teamsters Local 117 for the period of January 1, 2022 through December 31st, 2025. E, motion number 2021-113, authorizing the execution of a grant agreement with Washington State Emergency Management in the amount of $50,812 for emergency management performance. F, ordinance number 766, relating to contracting indebtedness, providing for the issuance, sale, and delivery of not to exceed $12,200,000 aggregate principal amount of limited tax general obligation bonds to provide funds to finance a portion of the city's capital improvement program projects and the cost of issuance of bonds, fixing or setting parameters with respect to certain terms and covenants of the bonds, appointing the city's designated representative to approve the final terms of the sale of the bonds, and providing for other related matters. G, ordinance number 767, relating to the approval of projects to be funded with revenue generated by the City of Lakewood's Transportation Benefit District.
Thank you. Is there any item which any member of the council wishes to have removed from the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Farmer.
I would like to pull ordinance number 767 related to the Transportation Benefit District.
All right. Item F, ordinance number 766. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, we'll pull that.
Wait a minute.
Wait a second.
767.
You
Sorry.
went 767, excuse me.
767.
Mr. Branstetter.
Yes, I was just going to note that we should be, that the article requested was 767.
All right, is there anything else?
No.
Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion on the consent agenda list item G.
So moved.
Second.
And moved by Mr. Whalen, seconded by Ms. Farmer, that we adopt the consent agenda as amended. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We now move to ordinance number 767 relating to the approval of projects funded with revenue generated by the TBD. Ms. Farmer.
Thank you. I am not opposed to anything in this ordinance. I think it's as previously discussed on multiple occasions, I'm really glad we're taking this step. What I wanted to do was a little bit for posterity. We've got some information in the staff memo regarding the 7 new projects that are being added, but those are not really called out in the ordinance itself. And so in the future, people will be referring to the ordinance and it won't be connected to the staff memo. So what I'd like to suggest if it pleases the council, is that on page 109 of our packet, after the note about there's a whereas that references the projects that are finished. I'm suggesting that we add a whereas that references the 7 projects that we're adding. That way we're calling out what's done, we're calling out what's being added, and then on page 110 of the packet, it has the full list that contains everything since the inception of the TBD.
So you're making that as a motion to amend ordinance number 767?
Yes, thank you.
Is there a
Second.
second? Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The amendment passes. We now move to the ordinance as amended. Is there any, Mr. Branstetter?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would also like to offer an amendment. And I would propose to amend the preamble and title of the ordinance to add at the end of the ordinance, and extending the sunset of the district, so that it would read an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Lakewood, Washington, relating to the approval of projects to be funded with revenue generated by the City of Lakewood's Transportation Benefit District, and extending the sunset of the district.
Is there a second to Mr. Branstetter's amendment?
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Mr. Branstetter, second by Mr. Volkey to amend the title as stated. Is there any further discussion? Would you like to speak to your amendment, Mr. Branstetter?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that this ordinance, and like Ms. Farmer, I don't have any significant problem with the item of the ordinance. It's just that I think it should be clear that this ordinance does 2 significant things. One, it adds 7 projects to the list of projects that are eligible for funding from the TBD, but that it also is extending the sunset of the ordinance, which essentially is extending the period of time that the $20 car tab fees will be imposed in the community. And folks in the community, I think, some would say one is important, some would say the other is more important, but I think we should be clear that we are doing both. Thus, just really clarifying that in the title. It is already addressed in the body of the ordinance, but it's not emphasized in the title.
Any further discussion on the second amendment? All in favor of that amendment, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Amendment carries. We now move to the ordinance as twice amended. Is there any further discussion on amended ordinance number 767? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Nay. Motion carries. We now move to the regular agenda. Resolutions. Resolution number 2021-15, Madam Clerk.
Resolution number 2021-15, formalizing the formation of the Tree Advisory Board Ad Hoc Committee.
Well, I guess we have Ms. Brunel for this.
Good evening. I'm sorry, I think my panelist was delayed. Did you call on me, Mr. Mayor Anderson?
I just did.
Okay, sorry about that. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the council. This evening we have resolution number 2021-15 to approve the formation of the Tree Advisory Ad Hoc Committee for the purpose of reviewing and existing the regulations found in Title 18A of the Municipal Code related to tree preservation. Once formed, the city will advertise for appointments to the committee via targeted outreach identified by the city council. A list has been included in this evening's packet from pages 114 to 115. The application period is anticipated to be open for 30 days. At the conclusion, the council will review the applications and appoint members based on their experience, expertise, and interest to effectively complete the work plan. The committee members will meet approximately 6 times between February and May of 2022 and be prepared to forward their findings onto the Planning Commission no later than June 2022 and the City Council no later than July 22. With that, I am happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Ms. Brunel?
I do have a question.
Mr. Whalen?
Ms. Brunel, thank you, and I appreciate your hard work on this. My one question as I reviewed the ordinance and I believe the next steps with regard to the consultants, I didn't realize we were having a second consultant that we were funding for their participation in this work. I knew of Burke, and perhaps I overlooked the other entity that was providing, I don't know, $21,000 worth of work as part of the project. Can you tell us a little bit how that came about?
That was part of Burke's initial proposal for doing a lot of the scientific scoping, I believe, behind the tree preservation work, the surveying of the existing trees, and they bring more of the scientific side as opposed to the code side, which is really Burke's bread and butter.
And they're going to assist Burke and the committee and ultimately council with a recommendation on the proposed changes to the ordinance itself, right?
Yes, they've been identified as Burke's subcontractor if you
Okay.
work with them and with us.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Brunel? Entertain a motion on resolution number 2021-15.
Move it.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Whalen, seconded by Ms. Moss, that we adopt resolution number 2021-15. Is there further discussion? Mr. Branstetter?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think an important aspect of this committee is to ensure that we have defined how we're going to structure the membership in a way to get the diversity of perspectives that the topic calls for, and a limit of expertise. In that, I have some concerns that the ordinance, the resolution as drafted, doesn't really define that with adequate specificity. I would like to propose to amend the resolution and replace section 3 with the following. Section 3. The Tree Advisory Ad Hoc Committee will be comprised of 13 members. To allow for diverse representation, membership shall include 1, at least 3 members with environmental expertise and/or interest. 2, at least 3 members from the development/real estate community. 3, at least 1 member active in a local neighborhood or homeowners association. 4, at least 2 members from the Lakeview, Monte Vista, Springbrook, Tillicum Woodbrook grouping of neighborhoods. 5, 1 member of the City of Lakewood Youth Council.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second the motion for purposes of some discussion.
Right. So we have a motion to amend by Mr. Brandstetter, seconded by Mr. Whalen. Mr. Brandstetter, it's your motion, so back to you.
Yeah, so while I feel that while we're going to be looking for 13 members, that I think that within the group of folks that would apply, that would indicate that they have environmental expertise and interest, and folks that have a interest from the developmental community, that multiple members from each of those groups would be beneficial, in that there's perhaps going to be a variety of perspectives even within folks that have those characteristics. Secondly, I think that there's a great deal of concern around environmental issues that relates to the impacts on particularly our lower income disadvantaged communities that we've been asked to take a look to make sure that they get adequate representation, and thus ensuring that at least 2 members of the committee that might overlap with one of the other groups come from those that grouping of 4 targeted neighborhoods that we have sort of identified as the core of our disadvantaged groups in terms of equity, and that that will not still leave from 5 to 7 members of the committee that we'll be able to choose from based on the value that we think they are, based on the applications and the information that folks submit, indicating both their interests and what they tell us that they would bring to the committee. Thus, essentially the increasing the minimum number of environmental and development community members from 1 to 3, and adding something to ensure that there is recognition from the lowest income neighborhoods in our community. I think that would get us the most representative committee in terms of dispersion within the community and perspectives.
Anyone else on the amendment?
Can I ask a question?
Mr. Mulkey.
Oh, thank you. I just want to ask Councilmember Brandstetter. So what you're anticipating is what's in there now is 1 environmental expertise, 1 development community, 1 or more from neighborhood associations, 1 youth council, and a member of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. So that's 6. And so your proposal is 3 environmental members, 3 building and real estate industry members, 1 youth council, 1 neighborhood association, and 2 from Lakeview, Monte Vista, Springbrook, Tillicum, Woodbrook. So that would leave 3 at-large members. Is that how you're stating that?
And actually, I was thinking that it would leave it would definitely define 7 members and perhaps 9, which would still leave us with from 4 to 6 members to choose from the entire family of advocates. The members from Lakeview, Monte Vista, Springbrook, and Tillicum might come from within either the environmental or development community, or even the neighborhood association group. So, the exact number would not be there, but it would leave a number of positions available to just choose 4 or more folks that we think would be really good contributors to the work of the committee without having to fall inside one of these groups, but wouldn't leave us with a lack of perspectives within the groups, particularly environmental or development folks.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Whalen.
A couple of comments. I don't have a large problem creating an ad hoc committee of 13. I kind of like the existing language, though, of a committee no greater than 13 members, just because we may or may not be able to get the full complement of 13 folks we find fit into the various categories and are qualified through the characteristics further defined in the resolution. So I would ask that we consider leaving the language as is in the first sentence of section 3. I'm not disputing the need to have some additional members defined in here as members from the development community or with environmental expertise or interest, but I would like to at least include item 5, the member from the city's Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. I think they have a particular expertise, having sat on that committee for many, many years and having certainly a heart for parks and spaces and open spaces within the city that has a expertise honed by many years of service to the city on this particular area. So I would ask we keep that in if that wasn't otherwise clear from Mr. Brandstetter's amendment. And then finally, with regard to members with environmental expertise and or interest, this may speak to the public commenter a bit on that. I want to make sure that we understand that that could include someone within the industry, whether an arborist or a tree service company that doesn't necessarily have an interest in cutting trees per se, but has some expertise with regard to what has happened in Lakewood with regard to the cutting of trees. And so again, I'm not trying to define any particular membership. I just want to keep it as broad as we can. Those are my 3 comments.
Ms. Farmer.
Yes, Mr. Deputy Mayor, your point is well taken about you can have a variety of opinions within the same industry. For example, I have a friend that lives a couple streets over here in Oak Brook, and she contracted with a tree removal company to remove 2 really big oak trees in her yard. And the company came out and said, "Oh my gosh, these are healthy trees. They're joined. Please consider keeping them," and all that sort of thing. They ended up keeping them. So
right, exactly.
So absolutely, they're not just there to cut down the trees just because you ask. So that was a heartwarming story for me. A couple of points on the points. I wanted to thank Councilmember Brandstetter for throwing some new categories out there. I like the idea of increasing the number of specific perspectives from the development community and folks with specific environmental expertise, such as arborists or ecology, forest ecology. I'm not married to the number 3 in each of those categories. I kind of like the idea of having a few more at-large positions at our disposal. And so I would also advocate 2 in each of those categories, 2 from the development community and 2 with specific environmental expertise. And the reason why I like there being more than 1 is that we might end up with a group of folks where we've got two lone voices, if you will, and if there are a couple more that might be from that same specific industry, might offer some more opportunity. I wanted to also advocate for adding set aside for someone from the low income and impacted communities that we already have called out in our census tracts. And so I think that would be, that's an excellent addition. And I wanted to pose a different point of view about the Parks Board set aside. By being the liaison to the Parks Recreation Advisory Board, they're absolutely fabulous, and everything that you just mentioned, they're a longtime residents. They are very knowledgeable and passionate about our parks and trees and all that sort of thing. That being said, they're already on that committee, and I argue that we might not need a set aside for that. I have a feeling of a few people from that committee might apply, and I wouldn't preclude the council from choosing one of them, but I wonder if we really need a set aside for them. So those are my comments.
I'm not opposed to the principle of Mr. Branstadter's amendment, but I share the concerns that it may be too restrictive. I'd like the number 2 instead of 3. You may end up with 3, but just like getting good candidates for offices where you have a smaller community and you divide it up into zones, somehow if it's too restrictive, I don't think we'll easily get or we'll risk at least not getting the quality of people that we want to have. It's hard to fill boards and committees in many cases, especially with people who have some expertise and are willing to work with others with an open mind and devote the time, take it away from whatever other activities they have, and we pay so much. So I'm concerned that we won't be able to do the best job of getting informed voices if we restrict it too much. So I guess I don't know if I'm inviting a friendly amendment to cut it back a little. We'll vote no and start over if it doesn't pass.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Bulkey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think we should vote on Mr. Branstadter's amendment, and then if it fails, then Ms. Farmer can make her amendment. I think that'd be the quickest way to go about it, sounds like. And the least confusing.
Any further discussion on the amendment?
Can we just hear it again so we're clear what we're considering?
The amendment was to have a fixed number of 13 members, is the way I put it. 3 with environmental interest or expertise, 3 with development or real estate connections or those communities, 1 from a neighborhood or homeowners association, 2 from particular distinct Lakewood geographic districts, and 1 from the Youth Council. Is there any further need for clarification before we vote on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
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 Nay. Well, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Bulkey,
Nay.
Branstetter,
Aye.
Farmer,
Nay.
Moss,
Aye.
Whalen,
Nay.
Bell,
Aye.
Anderson,
Nay.
3 ayes, 4 nays. Amendment fails.
The amendment fails. Ms. Farmer, did you wish to offer an amendment?
Sure. I would like to, so let's see. So we would not change, I would not recommend changing the section 3 preamble, which mentions no greater than 13. So I'd like to keep that. I would like to amend this, sorry, doing this on the fly. Number 1, 2 members with environmental expertise or interest. Number 2, 2 members from the development community. Number 3, 1 or more members from a local City of Lakewood neighborhood or homeowner association. Number 4, 1 member of the Lakewood Youth Council. And number 5 would be changed to be 2 from the low income or impacted communities. I don't have the exact census tracts with me. Branster, I had them.
I would suggest that we could have this, maybe the CDBG eligible census tracts.
Mhm.
Is that
So number 5 would read 2 from the CDBG eligible census tracts.
Is there a second to Ms. Farmer's motion?
I'll second that.
Been moved by Ms. Farmer, seconded by Mr. Bulkey to amend the required composition to include 2 members with environmental interest or expertise, 2 members with connections to the development or real estate community, 1 from a neighborhood or homeowners association, 1 from the youth council, and 2 from CDBG eligible census tracts. Further discussion on the amendment. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? The motion to amend carries. We now move to the amended motion. Is there any further discussion? Seeing no hands, will all in favor please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The amended motion carries. We now move to unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business come before the council?
There is none, Mayor.
Then we move to new business. A review of the American Rescue Plan, ARPA recommended expenditures. And for this, we have Ms. Spear.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Tiffany Spear. I will share my screen here briefly. So to date, regarding the American Rescue Plan Act in the city of Lakewood, the city council has adopted 3 ordinances, 759, 761, and 763, which adopt a program, a budget, and a special revenue fund. To date, $4,192,719 have been expended or approved for expenditures by the city council. On November 22nd, the council held a study session, and then on December 6th, there was a public hearing on 11 new ARPA eligible expenditures recommended to council. No public comments were received on December 6th. However, there were 2 people who testified back on November 1st when the ARPA budget ordinance public hearing was held from Tacoma Pro Bono in support of their recommended expenditure, which is before you this evening. If the council were to approve all of the 11 expenditures in the packet this evening, there would be a remainder of $6.4 million approximately left of the ARPA funds for the city, which once 5% of the administrative costs are set aside that the city would need for administration of the program, a little over $6 million for future allocations, either to third parties, to government partnerships, and or to additional city expenditures. This is a table that summarizes the items that are in the packet tonight. These were the subject of the public hearing on December 6th. And there's more information about each one of these in tonight's packet. On November 22nd, there was a direction that the agreements for service with third parties include at least annual reviews of performance and tracking of expenditures for the funds before an additional year's expenditure or dollars be dispersed. This is included in the recommended agreements for service for Boys and Girls Club, Rebuilding Together South Sound, Tacoma Pro Bono, and the YMCA. There was also a question on December 3rd about how the Boys and Girls Club would be tracking whether this children being involved in the program that would be funded by city ARPA dollars would be made sure that they were eligible. And you'll see that they do track that. There is an application which all fill out, and in particular, it looks at the disclosed race for the parent or guardian, the school district, whether it's confirmed free, reduced, or above scale lunch, and whether or what their self-disclosed HUD income limit, or if they are within that income limit. The other things that are going on right now is that the ARPA's call for public applications is currently open and is open until January 15th. Once that application period closes, the city will review those applications for compliance with the program and then bring those recommended expenditures forward to the council, likely in February of next year. There is also a video on there of a Q&A session that was hosted for potential applicants that people can watch to learn more about the criteria and steps to apply. And then also starting next year, there will be quarterly updates on the Lakewood program to the City Council in conjunction with the financial reports provided to you. And then additional presentations certainly can be made to you as requested. And with that, I will stop presenting and answer any questions that you may have.
Questions for Ms. Spear? I guess one question I would have is there was I think a bit of maybe surprise or confusion on the part of some council members with reading in Lakewood Connections an article which implied that we were rushing to spend the rest of the money when I don't think that was an interest expressed by council. So is there a staff timeline or a goal for expending the remainder of the funds or obligating the remainder of the funds?
No, this is simply what we've done to date is bring forward to you the last packet of proposed things which were somewhat time sensitive. So for instance, making sure that there was some available dollars for support for those most severely affected, if you will. And then these right here that are presented to you this evening are those items that are of immediate need, if you will, for children in particular, which the City Council has expressed interest in supporting during these times, and also the eviction prevention or protection services coming from Tacoma Pro Bono. But the way it's been presented to the public and to the council is that there is the time until the end of 2024 to decide how to expend funds, and then they have to be spent by the end of 2026.
Today, I don't know if you saw it, but I think you were copied on an email from Lehigh regarding the Comfort Inn, indicating that they had received I think $7.9 million grant approval from the state, which would supplant the funding that Lakewood had provided in part. Or could you explain what if that money comes back next June? I believe it was contemplated by the security documents. What would happen to that money?
The notice that came out today was from the Low Income Housing Institute, or Lehigh, that they had received a grant from the Department of Commerce under the Rapid Acquisition Grant, for lack of a better term, where at least some of the funds that were used for the acquisition of Comfort Inn, which is now called Aspen Court, to be used as an enhanced shelter, was awarded to Lehigh. And they got about 72% of what they asked for. They requested 11 million. They were awarded 7.95 million. And so in the letter of commitment that the city of Lakewood provided to them last August, the agreement said that should they get that grant, there would be at least, in theory, if they got 100% funding back, 700,000 out of the $1 million that City of Lakewood provided for acquisition would be reimbursed to the city for other ARPA expenditures. Given the fact that they received about 72% of what their requested fund will be, I don't think that the city will be getting back its full 700,000. If it goes pro rata and the city receives 72% back, that would be a little over 500,000. And then it's up to the city council to decide how to allocate those dollars, whether it is for other ARPA expenditures and or the cost to operate beds at Lehigh, the social services related to those beds. That's up to the council.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions from Ms. Spear? Mr. Branstetter.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Ms. Spear, to follow up on the comments you just made about the Low Income Housing Institute receiving a grant from Department of Commerce. One of the points of uncertainty between us and Lehigh, based on our original commitment of $1 million, was our understanding that there would be a period of time when this facility would be providing emergency shelter services. And it sounds like the grant from Department of Commerce is predicated on them providing enhanced shelter services. So how do, if they're going to acknowledge the commitment for enhanced shelter services and disregard their commitment for emergency shelter services, that would seem that Lakewood should get more than just a pro rata reimbursement of our $1 million if they're going to look to go in a different direction than what was our piece over there. How will that issue get negotiated, or is the Low Income Housing Institute in the driver's seat on this?
As we sit here today, Councilmember Branstetter, there was a letter sent last week by the city. I believe the council was CC'd on it, that explained this is the language, the black letter language in the contract between Lakewood and Lehigh about the number of beds that would be provided to the city while it was being operated as an emergency shelter. And what's being proposed now as an enhanced shelter is not the same understanding that the city had when the funds were approved and provided to Lehigh. We have not heard back from Lehigh in response to that letter. And so as it sits, the chief of police is going to begin referring Lakewood people over there when the BCHT, excuse me if I get that wrong, is ready to do so. And hopefully the operations there at Lehigh, now that they're open, they're taking about 5 individuals a week from what we understand. Hopefully they'll be able to take those individuals in. What we did hear informally from Lehigh was that they potential to have up to 24 beds in 12 rooms of 2 beds apiece is maybe what we will be able to secure as the city. So it's actually more beds than were originally discussed in the contract because of the way the hotel is set up. But we have not heard back an official response. So we're waiting to see when people are brought to the structure to see how they're handled and if there is additional need for further discussion between the parties. But in the meantime, this is just information we wanted to bring to the council today about the fact that regardless of how they're going to operate that, if the city is willing to go and continue to refer people there, we will be receiving at least a majority, if not all of those $700,000 back through this grant from Commerce.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Spear? Thank you. Then we'll move to motion number 2021-102. Madam Clerk.
Motion number 2021-102, authorizing the execution of an agreement for services with Tacoma Pro Bono to fund pre-eviction services with American Rescue Plan Act funds.
I'll quickly ask on each of these whether any council member has further questions before there's a motion. Any further questions on this? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Wayland, seconded by Mr. Branstetter, that we adopt motion number 2021-102. Is there any further discussion? Will all in favor please signify by saying aye?
Aye.
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 Opposed, nay? The motion carries. We'll now move to motion number 2021-103. Madam Clerk.
Motion number 2021-103, authorizing the execution of an agreement for services with Rebuilding Together South Sound to fund services to disproportionately impacted communities with American Rescue Plan Act funds.
Any questions for Ms. Spear? Entertain a motion.
So move, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Moss, seconded by Mr. Boki, that we adopt motion number 2021-103. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Now move to motion number 2021-104, Madam Clerk.
Motion number 2021-104, authorizing the execution of an agreement with the Boys and Girls Club to fund services to disproportionately impacted communities with American Rescue Plan Act funds.
Any questions for Ms. Spear? Entertain a motion on motion number 2021-104.
So
So
moved.
move, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Wayland, seconded by Ms. Bell, that we adopt motion number 2021-104. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will all in favor please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Now move to motion number 2021-105, Madam Clerk.
Motion number 2021-105, authorizing the execution of an agreement with YMCA to fund services to disproportionately impacted communities with American Rescue Plan Act funds.
Questions for Ms. Spear? Hearing none, I entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Branstetter, seconded by Ms. Moss, that we adopt motion 2021-105. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. The motion carries. Move to motion number 2021-106, Madam Clerk.
Motion number 2021-106, authorizing the expenditure of $141,750 of American Rescue Plan Act funds for Lakewood Municipal Court technology needs in response to COVID-19.
Questions for Ms. Spear? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Wayland, seconded by Ms. Bell, that we adopt motion number 2021-106. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We now move to motion number 2021-107. Madam Clerk.
Motion number 2021-107, authorizing the expenditure of $131,250 of American Rescue Plan Act funds for Lakewood City Council Chambers dais improvements.
Questions for Ms. Spear? Is there a motion?
I will move it for purposes of discussion.
Motion has been made by Ms. Farmer. Is there a second?
Second.
And moved by Ms. Farmer, seconded by Ms. Bell. Further discussion? Ms. Farmer.
The improvements to the dais as stated, I'm not sure that's really what we want to be doing right now. I'm not sure that distancing is a part of much of anything anymore. The American Rescue Plan Act funds, this just doesn't seem to be the best use right now, and I'm curious what everybody else thinks.
Well, I join. I'm opposed. I don't think it's worth the money, even if it's free money. So,
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Moss.
we had this discussion in the past, if I remember correctly. That was to improve the sound system in the chambers, if I remember correctly.
Ms. Spear.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, it is a somewhat of a misnomer of the name of the motion. If you were to look on page 156, the actual discussion now, because of the council conversation either on December 6th or November 22nd, was to incorporate looking at additional space for AV and such on the dais, which was just discussed, but also looking at the sound system and also talking about moving the podium where people provide public testimony to the center in front of council instead of being so close to the city clerk. So it's slightly changed from what was originally proposed.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Let's see, Mr. Branstetter.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate Ms. Spear's comment that this has changed from when it was originally presented, and that there is a sort of a disconnect with the title and the description of all the work that would be done that's in the request for council action. And I, for one, would be more comfortable approving this expenditure if we could see sort of a visual and perhaps a presentation from our IT pipe department about what really would the enhancements do for both the council and for people who are attending council meetings, both in person and virtually. So I think that I'm going to vote nay this evening, with the idea that it could come back in some form with a more descriptive and more understandable of what is going to happen and what the benefits of what would happen would be.
All right, anyone else?
Mayor,
Ms. Moss.
I'm just recollecting what I had heard and what we had discussed in the past. We were talking more about the sound system for the audience and those panels that hang. That was my understanding.
All right. We'll call for the question. Will all in favor please signify by saying aye? Opposed, nay.
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 Motion fails. Now move to motion number 2021-108. Madam Clerk.
Motion number 2021-108, authorizing the expenditure of $525,000 American Rescue Plan Act funds for the Lakewood City Hall HVAC system improvements.
Any questions for Ms. Spear? Ms. Farmer.
Ms. Spear, is there any new information in this item from the last time we discussed?
Yes, again, on page 156 in your packet, there's discussion of information that came from facilities that explains that it's the air handlers being near the end of their life, and also the installation of the bipolar ionization to reduce exposure risks, excuse me. And this is in part due to the legislation that was recently passed by the Washington legislature regarding state clean building energy efficiency. And the idea is that this work would need to be done in any event by 2028. And so within the city of Lakewood, City Hall is the only building that qualifies. And the idea here is if it's done early, i.e. by July of 2022, the Lakewood city could apply for up to $100,000 grant back. So in a way, if this were approved now and moved forward, at least some of it could be reimbursed, providing some additional dollars that could go back into the ARPA bucket, if you will. And then the idea is, because we don't know exactly which units would go in, the presumption is that because they are newer units, they will be more efficient, but I don't have more detail than that from facilities.
Thank you.
Do we have any idea what the lead time on the equipment would be?
I'm sorry, I do not, but the intention is to have it done by July of 22, so we could certainly bring information back to the council with more detail.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion on motion number 2021-108.
Move adoption.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Branstetter, seconded by Ms. Moss, that we adopt motion number 2021-108. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We now move to motion number 2021-109. Madam Clerk.
Authorizing motion number 2021-109, authorizing the expenditure of $78,750 of American Rescue Plan Act funds for hand washing stations at city parks without bathrooms.
Any questions for Ms. Spear?
I'm trying to get a handle on what these actually will do. I mean, wash hands I get, but I mean, are they, glorified Purell dispensers, or what are they?
I believe, Mr. Branstetter, Councilmember Whalen, where did that come from? I'm sorry. They are actually running water hand washing stations. There's discussion that's been had within facilities about how maintenance would be conducted over time. So it's more than just the Purell. It's true hand washing with water and a waste pipe, etc.
Ms. Farmer.
For long-term maintenance, I don't know if you know the answer to this question, but would we have to run water lines and sewer lines, or would we be able to tap into existing infrastructure? I don't know if there's been conversation about graffiti and just keeping something housed, and I don't know.
You're right. I don't have that information. What I can tell you is I did not get feedback that there would be a problem with long-term maintenance, that it would be something they'd have to do, certainly, but there wasn't the concern that it would be overburdensome, over costly, etc.
I do know that at the state, we manage a couple of parks, and we have bathrooms that we have had to lock overnight because of vandalism and some other nefarious activity. And so, so it doesn't sound like these have a housing over them, but they are open air washing stations.
These are not bathrooms, correct, council member?
Right.
These are simply, you walk up and be able to wash your hands.
Right. And there's no cover over them.
Not that I know of. I don't know for sure, but I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Spears, do you know about the size of the hand washing station? And because for usage, is it just for hands? Because it could be taken advantage of for washing lots of things.
The intention from facilities is that this is strictly for hands.
Okay, so there would be like a small basin.
Yes.
Not
yes.
super, okay, great.
Correct.
Thank you.
Do you know, Ms. Spear, do you know, is this something that's intended to be plumbed, or is it the special event foot pump hand wash station that goes next to a porta potty?
These are intended to be permanent fixtures, so plumbed.
So we'll need a sewer hookup.
Presumably, yes.
How much does a sewer hookup cost? Whole
I
bunch
do
of
not
money.
have that information for you. I'm sorry.
That's and is there a minimum charge every month? And
I don't have that information.
yeah, that would concern me is more the ongoing cost than the one-time expenditure. Mr. Branstetter.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. And Ms. Spear, is when we have done outreach to the public or surveys of the public and asked them what they like and what needs to be improved in the parks, it seems to me that this is an element that the public has indicated that they would like to have enhanced, that they see the lack of them as a shortfall in terms of the amenities, is that a part of the view of the Parks Department in being able to provide these?
Yes, in part. The focus is on public health related to COVID and the ability to wash hands frequently. But it is something that also is reflective of the 2020 legacy plan.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move motion 2021-109.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Bulkey, seconded by Mr. Whalen, that we adopt motion number 2021-109. Is there further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Bulkey.
I would just say this is one of the things that fits right into the original ARPA definition. Things like HVAC improvements and hand washing stations and sanitation stations of any sort fit into the original ARPA definition. And this is absolutely a positive thing and fits under ARPA, and it's a good expenditure of ARPA dollars.
Anyone else? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries. We now move to motion number 2021-110, Madam Clerk.
Motion number 2021-110, authorizing the expenditure of $105,000 of American Rescue Plan Act funds for a space reconfiguration study of Lakewood City Hall.
Any questions for Ms. Spear? Mr. Branstetter.
Thanks, Mayor. Ms. Spear, the discussion in the request for council action includes the statement that through this motion, City Council would fund a space reconfiguration study of Lakewood City Hall to relocate all city employees at City Hall on the first and second floors. And I just want to make sure I understand the interpretation of that. Is that to relocate all employees at City Hall onto the first and second floors? Or is it to reallocate those employees that are on the first and second floors differently?
Councilmember Brandstetter, it is to reconfigure the operations at City Hall to basically free up the third floor for potential private lease or other uses and consolidate all city employees and operations to floors 1 and 2. The idea being, first of all, you now have city staff that are working remotely, not only due to COVID, but potentially longer term, regardless of when everything reopens completely. And there is a desire to use the third floor for other things. So yes, the idea is everybody that is currently housed on the third floor would be down on floors 1 or 2, and then potentially those currently on 1 or 2 would either stay where they are or move around a bit so that everybody had room.
So if we were to do this, is this going to essentially obligate us to a very long term of a portion of the staff working remotely?
This is phase 1, which is simply the first step. Phases 2 and 3, which would be much more costly and actually involve the planning and then eventual move of everyone, is not funded. There's at this point no anticipated dollars for that. It'll be a future council discussion. So assuming, however, that all of those phases were approved and funded and done, you would have a certain number of spaces at City Hall for staff. And the assumption at this point would be that some of your staff would be working remotely and maybe sharing desks when they needed to come into City Hall for whatever reason.
I see.
I don't know.
So what this is funding, does it get us on a series of steps that we can't go step back from?
No, this is the first phase, which is to come up with the ideas, kind of like architectural drawings, which can stand on their own and either move forward or not, to say this is how we could reorganize the use of the space at the City Hall. It doesn't take you and obligate you to any further action.
Okay. And with respect to there being interest in utilizing the space on our third floor, is that interest on our part to have somebody do it, or is that based on expressed interest from some parties that want to do it?
If I'm understanding your question correctly, there has been expression, I believe, by some council members and also city discussions to either have, for instance, the vet center located on the third floor that's been discussed for the Lakewood area, or to have a third party private entity come in and occupy some of City Hall. So I think the sky's the limit at this point. There's been no dedication or decision for sure what might go into the third floor, but a lot of different ideas have been discussed.
Thank you.
Ms. Farmer.
I'm curious about a timeline. If we really are years from being able to finish phases 2 and 3 or multiple phases, then at some point this $100,000 for the study hopefully wouldn't be out of date, or I know it's one-time funds for a one-time study, but if I'm now a little concerned that if we're far away from the study and the actuals, I'm just curious if there's been a discussion about that.
Councilmember Farmer, I didn't mean to indicate that it would take years to do the rest of the phases. I'm simply saying that at this point, the council is only looking at phase 1. And if there's interest next year, for instance, once that report were to come back to you to move forward, it would be up to the council to set the schedule for the future phases. So it could be happening much faster than multiple years from now.
True. We haven't, good point. We haven't seen budget figures. So it's all up in the air. Okay.
Right.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I think this is as simple as, in most private offices, you look at space planning and reconfiguring from time to time. Even without COVID, if you walk through City Hall, yeah, if you're familiar with commercial leasing, you would say this space is really underutilized, even when everybody's there. So there, I think 20,000 square foot plus plates. And if I were to say it's overbuilt, I wouldn't be the first or even the 100th person to say that. So we might, this just presents some opportunities. What would it mean if we consolidated people in a more efficient manner and figure out how much it costs and whether there was a benefit to it. So, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Whalen, seconded by Mr. Branstetter, that we adopt motion number 2021-110. Is there any further discussion?
I'll just speak to it real quickly. On the commercial leasing side, I think it's an acceptable use of the ARPA funds, especially with potential down the road for relocating or separating personnel in a very efficient manner in City Hall. So I think it's a reasonable disbursement of the funds. And it gives us at least some options to consider over the long term as we reconfigure City Hall to maximize our utility. So I'm in favor of it.
Any other comments, discussion, questions? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We now move to motion number 2021-111. Madam Clerk.
Motion number 2021-111, authorizing the expenditure of $669,375 of American Rescue Plan Act funds for retention bonuses for Lakewood Police Department officers.
Questions for Ms. Spear? And I believe the Chief Sorrow is still in the attendee room in case anybody has questions for him. Entertain a motion.
Don.
Mr. Bulkey.
I got a couple of questions. Thanks. Tiffany, so is this projected as a one-time payout of $7,500? Are you going to do it $2,500 a year for 3 years, or how are you anticipating this going out?
If Chief Zarro is available, I would love to be able to defer this question to him. From my perspective, just managing the program, we would have to take a look at how many dollars are available given the number of expenditures that the City Council has already approved, because we at this point have half of the funds. The second half won't be available till August of 22. So with that, I'll just turn it over to the Chief to answer that.
Chief, you're muted.
Of course I was. The question that I heard was about whether it's a one-time payment or divided up into 3 payments. The intent was to be one lump sum payment. Up front.
Okay. And is there a clawback provision in there?
That's what we're working on currently. The city attorney and the HR director and I have been trading language for an agreement, essentially, with both an MOU and the individual employees that would specify what the payback would be if the person left early, voluntarily or involuntarily.
Okay, so you're working on that language?
Oh, absolutely, yes, yes.
Okay, and then is this being done elsewhere? Do we know?
In other parts of the country, I don't know who else in the state is doing it. I know that I can't quote the department, but I do know I saw departments in other parts of the country that were doing this, because it is unfortunately a national trend that we're seeing drawdown in our ranks.
Right. And then how did we come up with the amount?
We worked with I worked with the city manager on what a what I thought a fair amount would be. A little bit of it was, what number sounded right to entice people to stay for 3 years, when I look at other agencies that are offering massive hiring bonuses and, divided up into, over a course of 3 years, we felt that that was fair and would actually be effective.
Do we do hiring? You mentioned hiring bonuses. Do we do hiring bonuses?
We do small ones for laterals.
Okay.
And the feedback that we'd gotten was the bonus for laterals was more about the hours that they would get of leave, as opposed to the money. So we do offer a little bit of money and some leave bank when they come on board.
So what are we competing against when you say that they're doing massive hiring bonuses?
Well, I've heard, from $10,000 to $25,000 in some agencies in our region. And I think Councilmember Bell can speak directly for one of those agencies.
Well, for laterals in Kent, it is a 25K bonus, but that's for laterals.
I can
Is that out of ARPA or just bonus out of general fund?
I'm not 100, for me, you're asking me?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not 100% sure of where it's coming from.
Okay.
Councilmember Boki, to your question about lateral hires, I've been sitting on some of those interviews, and to the last person that we've interviewed on the lateral hire panels, the police department is setting up those panels as quickly as they can to get the interviews rolling as quickly as they can, because in each and every instance, the people who are interviewing with multiple agencies. I cannot remember a single one of them that was only interviewing with Lakewood for lateral hire.
And what's our bonus for a lateral hire?
It is $2,000 cash with 80 hours of leave as soon as you hire, and then another 80 hours of leave when you get off probation.
And I'll just clarify, the 25K lateral bonus, it's depending on experience too, but it also does throw in other incentives in Kent, like the take-home car and up to a certain amount of hours that are front-loaded for leave. So it's everybody's competing.
Thank you.
Mr. Whalen.
Oh, just confirming with Ms. Spear on the definition of the use for ARPA funds. As I understand it from our prior discussions, ARPA funds can be used in expenditures like this, where they can be used for payroll and covered benefits expenses for public safety, public health, and healthcare, right? And so this is in the category of providing payroll or covered benefit expenses for public safety or public health employees and first responders.
This would be under the general category provision of government services.
Okay.
And so, yes, it is a qualified quote bucket of ARPA funds.
And we didn't provide any particular first responder monies or bonus monies at all during the whole COVID period that I'm aware of.
We did not.
We did not do any premium pay for any emergency services or any other. This is a standalone request that's coming to you tonight.
And Chief, my only thought when I recall our discussion, I thought in my mind, 7,500 was a round number of 3 years, it's 2,500 apiece. And I thought it was to be paid out each year. Is there more of an administrative burden in doing so as opposed to the lump sum at 7,500? Because it provides a more tangible incentive, if you will, to stay for the 3-year period, which is kind of the goal, right?
Yes, I think the intent all along has been one lump sum payment. So if I didn't communicate that correctly, then that's on me. But that has always been the intent. I think we kind of talked about what that would mean over 3 years, just doing basic math. But I don't know about what the administrative burden would be, but I think the one lump sum is more enticing than a smaller amount divided up over 3 years.
Okay, and we probably have to spend it before 2024 anyway, right, Ms. Spear? Yeah. Okay.
It has to be committed by the end of 24. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you for the correction.
Ms. Farmer.
I understand from some of the discussion that we're not in this situation alone. Other bonuses, in some cases much larger, being paid out across the country, across the counties. Does anybody have information about whether they're using their ARPA funds to do so, if they're using their general fund dollars?
I can't speak to that. The articles I've seen didn't really speak to where the money came from. It's just, they were just about that the bonuses were there.
Fair enough. So to the deputy mayor's point, this is an allowed use under ARPA. We'd be in this position no matter what. And so I want to make sure that I'm on the record as being fully supportive of making sure that we retain as many of our wonderful LPD officers as possible. I have a question about having it come out of ARPA funds with all these other very different things that we've got going on. One way or the other, I'm supportive of us keeping our folks.
And I would just answer you, Councilmember Farmer, with the comment that the police department obviously offers general public safety, but also has, again, this BCHT team, which is dealing with those that are feeling some of the hardest effects of whether it's poverty or COVID specifically. And that is something that ARPA is also very focused on. So there's multiple supports within the ARPA Act for why these funds could be spent this way.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Entertain motion on motion number, I've lost it, 2021-111.
So moved.
Seconded.
It's been moved by Mr. Whalen, seconded by Mr. Brandstetter, that we adopt motion number 2021-111. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you. And we now move to motion number 2021-112. Madam Clerk.
Motion number 2021-112, authorizing the expenditure of $32,162 of American Rescue Plan Act funds for temporary human resources staff to handle COVID-19 exposure protocols and procedures.
Any questions for Ms. Spear? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Boki, seconded by Ms. Moss, that we adopt motion number 2021-112. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Spear, for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I would now suggest that any one of you move to cancel our study session scheduled for Monday, December 27th, which is pretty routine business for the council. I think sometimes we've canceled it without actually moving it. So this
I
is
move we cancel the December 27th study session.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Boki, seconded by Ms. Moss, that we cancel the study session for Monday, December 27th. Is there anyone who wants to come in? Mr. Whalen. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We now move to reports by the city manager, Mr. Caulfield.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Deputy Mayor and council members. Just a couple of things. Mayor and council, as part of under council comments, one of the things you might want to consider is beginning in January, do you want to continue with virtual meetings, or do you want to go back to in person? That would also allow for virtual attendance. And the reason I bring this up is because last month you made a commitment to continue virtual meetings through the end of this year, and since this is your last meeting, so just wanted to bring that up to you. I wanted to give you an update on Aspen Court, aka the former Comfort Inn facility. Ms. Spear did cover most of that, so I won't get into that. I did want to point out that the intake is actually 5 people per day, and they began accepting people last Thursday on December 16th. And right now, the city, the Lakewood Police Department, specifically our behavioral health contact team, we will be identifying individuals to either bring over there or to try and accommodate for them to go over there. And that work is in process right now. So it could be as soon as this week that we begin bringing folks over there. As far as, what our expectations are of the facility, in that it is an emergency shelter. We haven't gotten any pushback on that they're saying, no, we're not going to take folks if you bring them over and they want to stay for a night or 2 nights or however long it is. Though at the same time, LHI does have rules of conduct that they expect all of the folks that stay in there to abide by that. And we do too concur with that as well. I think the last item on that, and this was a bit of a positive surprise, is they noted that Lakewood has 12 rooms, but within each room are 2 beds. So we actually have up to 24 beds to accommodate 24 people, as opposed to 12. So we'll see how it goes. And our behavioral health contact team, in partnership with Greater Lakes Mental Health, they'll be the tip of the spear who will be making the referrals. I know we might be getting some snow here. I know I kind of chuckle over that. My philosophy on snow is leave 15 minutes early. And also when it snows, please get out there and drive on the roads, because our crews are out there putting down, they're pushing the snow to the side of the road, and they're putting down a mixture of salt and some sand. So we need that hot rubber out there, clearing the snow so it doesn't freeze up and become ice. So do not listen to what the news media says, which is stay off the road. I actually want you to get out there and drive on the road. And the empirical evidence on that is I-5, because I-5 after a few hours of snow is actually clear. So, but with that, and in all seriousness, our crew is standing by and ready to go. For a city of our size, we're very well. We have a good number of equipment to be able to address any snow event. We've got 3 dump trucks with plows, including salt spreaders. We have 5 1-ton trucks with plows, and 4 of them have salt spreaders, and then another one has a brine tank to be able to put down the de-icer. And then we have plenty of salt brine stored over at our O&M shop, and we have about 120 tons of salt currently on hand. And then both the brine and the salt, as we get into an event, we regularly get resupplied on that. So we have plenty of resources to be able to get out there in the event that we have something. Right now, they're saying maybe around Christmas Day or a few days after that, we might get a few inches of snow. So, but with that, just want to wish you and all of yours a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year. And we'll see you in January. So thank you very much.
Any questions for the city manager? Well, that was quick. Running out of time for the year, and Mr. Caulfield doesn't use his allotted time. Must be a hockey game on.
No, I was just checking the news. They canceled the season for like the next week and a half. So what's up with that? COVID.
That's too bad. So we move to council comments, and as suggested by the city manager, first thing I'd like to do under council comments is solicit council's input on desires to potentially return to, I guess it would be a hybrid model. We can, my understanding is that we cannot return to a pure in-person only meeting. We must allow for remote attendance under the governor's emergency order. So you could, is Walker's giving me the thumbs up from the legal department. So we're not operating under the Open Public Meetings Act. We're operating under the governor's version of Public Meeting Act or Public Evening Edict. So we must have the virtual part of it. We can have the live part of it. And so what's your pleasure?
Live.
Live. We have one voice from the wilderness. Thumbs up from Ms. Moss.
I am in favor of having an in-person meeting with the option with the virtual component, and of allowing an individual council member to attend remotely if they feel that's appropriate for them. I think that's also consistent with the new council rules that we adopted.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
To that, if the decision that we make, if the virus is ramping up still in January, then we can make other arrangements.
Anyone else? All right, let's kind of do a show of hands. How anybody object to moving to the hybrid model as of the first meeting in January? I think our prior decision was that we'd carry on as virtual only through the end of the year. So we're really just reverting to where we were before we yo-yoed back into virtual only. So is there, Ms. Walker, in your opinion, is there anything else we need to do other than public notice to go back to a hybrid model?
No, Mr. Mayor, and just to be completely clear, based on one of the comments that I heard, you have no option about the virtual part. You are required to hold a virtual meeting. Whether or not you choose to do an in-person meeting that has that virtual component is the part that's up to you, but there is no choice other than to conduct the virtual part of the meeting.
As long as the emergency order is in effect.
Correct. And you're absolutely right on the money with that. That is pursuant to the governor's order. It is not pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act.
You know that the county council was going to have a remote meeting without any ability to call in, and that had to be changed. So we'll go to council comments, and Mr. Branstetter.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I think we can be appreciative of some significant comments or accomplishments as a council and as a city that we've made during 2021. I think that as we celebrated 25th anniversary of cityhood, that we did that well and appropriately given the situations that we had. And I think that we have 2021 has proven us to be a resilient city, that we dealt in that in the environment that was there, that I think that we can be proud of how well we served our community. We can be proud of our community for how well they weathered this and are remaining optimistic, even those that have some problems to do that. So we'll say I'm proud of our work this year, and look forward to a year with accomplishments that keep us moving in the direction that we have been. Mr. Mayor, I did have a question as we passed the resolution on the tree preservation committee. And the resolution calls for the committee to be appointed by the council and there to be an application process. But I have been getting questions about exactly how is the selection process going to work. And I'm not exactly sure as to whether we're going to use a process that is akin to how we've appointed committees in the past with the mayor reviewing applications and submitting a proposal to the council to confirm, or whether we're going to use a process that was more like when we appointed a replacement council member, of where we got things and then had sessions of where we talked about everybody that applied and went through some processes that included both executive and open sessions, or if there is something in between of where you were envisioning there being a subcommittee of 2 or 3 council members that would make the initial review of the applications and then could perhaps propose a slate to the full council. I didn't know what your intent was with terms of that process.
Actually, I intended to term out.
Well, that well, you know, so if you want to refer the question to the deputy
My
mayor,
successor, you know, personally, it could go. I think by default it would go to the regular process where the mayor makes a recommendation that goes to council. It might be a good idea to have a non-quorum committee. We had, you know, you kind of have a free form ability to create a process for appointing a new council member. And we did that. We came up with an agreement as to how we were going to do it and then went down that process. I think that's for selecting one person, and that's way too complex and involved for this situation. But I'd invite the thoughts of others.
I'd be interested in a non-quorum committee to work on it. I think it's too much to lay at the feet of our current or future mayor.
I agree.
Big responsibility.
I like the non-quorum committee idea.
Okay.
Yeah, I do too, because then there's a chance for some open discussion in the non-quorumed forum. And they can really get to the heart of the matter and qualifications without having to, you know, berate any 1 or 2 or 5 or 25 people, and getting to the right qualities that are going to do the best good for the most folks.
It seems like that's a plan. So I don't know what, maybe we can do that by motion, get some volunteers for first meeting of January.
so we'd identify the non-quorum meeting you envision in the first meeting in January.
Pardon?
That's when we identify who the non-quorum.
Correct. I have a simple motion that we're appointing a non-quorum committee of X, Y, and Z.
Okay, I'm supportive of that.
All right.
That's
Have
all I
anything
have.
further, Mr. President?
That's it.
Ms. Moss?
Mayor, I think I'm on, yeah. I ditto the comments from Councilmember Burns. I think we've been very successful in accomplishing a lot of the things that we had on our plate during the COVID, and happy to say that we were successful. We did much better than we had expected. The ribbon cutting on Friday, I was really pleased with that. I did get some comments and concerns from some of the surrounding areas about they felt that we were opening up the gates for people to come into their community and do bad things. And I think we're going to hear that every time we make a move. So explaining to them, too, that it's happening anyway. So, but they just say, well, yeah, but you're making it easier for them to get in. So you're going to hear that when it gets farther down, because I'm hearing it here now in my complex when this opened up down Chambers Creek later as it moves forward. I'm hearing the same comments. And now people are coming through. It's just that the comments are that we are making it easier for them to come into the neighborhoods and do bad things. Just so you know, that's just the way it is. And I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you next year. Thank you.
Ms. Farmer.
I also attended the ribbon cutting of the new bridge down in Chambers Canyon on Saturday, and it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And they've opened up the trail that used to be a goat trail. I got stuck in there once. I was on a call with the city manager early in the lockdown, and I was on a walk, and I'm like, I don't know where I am. I'm supposed to be on the trail, and now it's an actual trail. I am tickled pink about it. This isn't a traditional park. It doesn't have a play set. And it's a nod to how people have always walked, but people walk all the time now. There's a lot of folks who are working from home or who are just trying to get out and recreate by themselves because of safety issues. And so this offers an amazing opportunity to recreate in a deeply wooded area with water and great blue herons and salmon in our backyard. That, it's in our backyard, sort of in University Place's backyard too, but we did that. And thank you to our state representatives and to Pierce County and the University Place Council and so many people who are involved in that. I heard it was 26 years in the making. That's the speed of government for you. It's crazy. I've been involved in some long time things coming back when I worked for the cities of Federal Way and the cities of Tacoma. And now it's nice to be able to look back and go, wow, I was a part of that, however many so years ago. It's a wonderful legacy. And we're just starting with the legacy. So I was smiling all weekend. And the rain held off. It started raining about 15 minutes after we finished everything. And it was just perfect. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, no matter how you celebrate. And we will see you in the new year.
Ms. Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, again, will just convey what everyone is saying. Great things. I know I came into the council this year, and it was exciting to see all the things that the city of Lakewood is working on and doing and to be a part of. So I'm really excited for everything that's getting ready to happen in 2022. And there's so many wonderful activities and things for residents on deck and changes and road, I forget what you say, Mr. Mayor, something about there should always be construction, something like that. But all of the road construction things that are happening, which is just improvements for the city. So I'm just really excited to see all of these things, to be a part of it. And I want to thank the residents for their support and their resilience. And I just really appreciate how everybody still is coming together and moving forward. And a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year to everybody.
Mr. Wilkie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ditto all that's already been said. I had a great time on Saturday, kind of getting the fruition of a major project, or the beginning of a major project, and really a neat project that I think opens up a world of hopefully a world of trails and interesting things over the next decade or so. So really a positive step forward for the city and for its park system, I think. And I really do hope it works out well. And also I share, everybody's looking forward to next year and hopefully a healthy year. And we said it at the end of last year, but hopefully things will kind of normalize. And because I think we've got a lot of great things planned and a lot of great things on the horizon. So we're already in the works. I drove around the Gravelly Lake project yesterday or the other day, and it's really neat. It's really cool. And I think it will be, as part of the whole JBLM North project, a wonderful addition. So I'm looking forward to seeing that and the other items that we talked about tonight going forward. So Merry Christmas to everybody and Happy New Year.
Mr. Whalen.
Well, thank you. Merry Christmas. First and foremost, everyone, I wish you all a great holiday season and look forward to seeing you in January. We have much to be thankful for in many ways as a city, as a group of leaders that have been blessed with some good and fine collaborative work by staff and all of us, frankly, and great input of our volunteer citizen committees and certainly many, many residents. So we have a lot to be proud of. It would be fun maybe in January, Jim is doing so well with his video snippets that it might be kind of fun to do a year in review every year, the significant projects, just as kind of a fun, reminder in the new year of all the wonderful things that have happened in the year past. And it's a great thing to put out there for the residents on Facebook or Twitter or whatever medium we have, but it's a wonderful reminder that we do great progress together as a community, not just us as a council, but the community together. Saturday was a great event, another example of seeds that have been planted over the course of time and come to fruition in this great park project. And I hear what you're saying, Mary. I think it is incumbent on all of us to make sure that we encourage folks to use and enjoy the trails and they take an ownership interest in it. And I think all of us working together and using these wonderful amenities, I think we can help preclude the knucklehead stuff that can happen in certain locations. I can tell you from a personal story, when I lived in Olympia, when we first moved to Western Washington, we lived in West Olympia, and they had a trail system in the woods in West Olympia that kind of went up from the lower part by the sound there up to the hill. And when Gail was pregnant with her first child, she was having a little bit of difficulty getting going, and she was due. And so we went out on that trail, and by God, she went into labor like shortly thereafter that afternoon. So 27 years ago, we enjoyed that trail immensely. And it gave birth to not only a daughter, but a love of all things trail. So hopefully people can utilize the trails for good things as well. But I wish you all a happy new year and certainly Merry Christmas. And I'll see you on January 3rd.
Thank you. Well, unfortunately, I had to miss the event. I was out of town, but I do have some consolation for your constituents that expressed concern to Ms. Moss, is that the common wisdom of those who seem to know more than I do, when we were down there a couple of years ago plotting the path and the potential boardwalk of the future, is that since there are already knuckleheads down there doing things, that it will actually improve the security, having more people going through, more eyes, and opening it up to the community. It's kind of like, dude, if it's the middle of the night, would you rather walk in a crowded street outside the theater, or would you rather walk alone? And it's kind of that type of dynamic that they think it would be helpful to making it a even safer area than it has been. But it's a great amenity. And I went investigating. I actually went out, hiked around a salt marsh nature trail in San Diego. And though the trail was well done, had interpretive things along the way with QR codes telling you why this cactus blooms when it does and what this plant is. It was nothing compared to lake around Wahop or going down Chambers Creek in the northwest. So it was great to see something different, but also made you think of the wonderful things that are home, at least in the summer. With that, unless there's further business, we'll be recessing into executive session. Is there anything further from council before we recess? Right? Then we will recess into executive session for approximately 30 minutes pursuant to RCW 4231.10(1)G to review the performance of a public employee. The city council is not expected to take action following the executive session other than to adjourn the meeting. Council members, please enter the private Zoom meeting. We are in recess. Hello, going to extend for 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I'm even back on time. And we're adjourned. Whoops,
Thanks, Mayor.
it went away. Good evening. Merry Christmas.
Have a good week.
Great.